see. I'm going to readjust.
Oh, we are now live. Oh, let's see this. So how about this? While we readjust, I want to tell you guys, welcome to the Work and Play podcast. We have a really dope conversation here, getting ready to have a conversation with Ms. Naya B. Peoples, and it's about to be amazing. So here's the thing. On the first episode, episode 85 of the Work and Play podcast, we had a conversation with Ms. Naya B. Peoples. Now, here's the thing. As we're on this journey from corporate into entrepreneurship, we're faced with a whole bunch of just different things, emotions, different thoughts, different like limiting beliefs. And honestly and truly, I've been through it as well. And so we actually like got to have a real conversation about, one, what it was like to leave corporate America. And then two, what it was like to process as a business owner, some of the thoughts that come up in your mind around pricing, around identifying what your target customer is, around your offers, right? And so because of that, I got to have a really good conversation with Ms. Naya B. Peoples. Now, as she talked about her transition, she left corporate America and did the similar things, right? So a lot of people feel like they have to quit, just jump ship, and then literally start from scratch. But what Naya did was take the expertise that she had while she was in corporate America to build up her business when she went into entrepreneurship. So we talked about social media. We talked about marketing. We talked about her passion for communication and how she got a chance to build a business. Now, my favorite part was when we talked about her and her husband. Now, for my ladies and gentlemen out there who are still entrepreneurs and still single out in these streets, learning about like how she got a chance to build a relationship with her husband was actually my favorite. So I could go on and on and on all day. And so before I bring my guest up to the stage, I want to just let you guys know that this conversation is really, really near and dear to me. I met Naya when we were at a networking event, an entrepreneur networking event, and we sat next to each other in the seat together. We didn't even know each other at the time. All we did was just say, hey, how are you, sis? We know this is another sister on the come up. I'm a sister on the come up. And we just exchanged information. From that point on, it was locked in. And I can't wait to introduce her to you guys. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring Ms. Naya B. Peoples up to the stage. Y'all do not want to miss it. Here we go.
Yes, I have a little guy here, still attached to me, you guys. Still attached.
Well, the funny thing is, episode 83, he was here. He was actually with us.
He is here.
We had him. Now he's actually here.
Right.
So, Naya, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's crazy. To your point, when we first met, it was literally like just divine intervention, I guess, because literally it was like, hey, how you doing? Like, no one told us to have introductions or anything. We just exchanged Instagram handles and just kept up with each other. So that's
really it. And now we're both in the same community. It's really dope to see you grow. And also some of the things that we've talked about from the podcast, we got to talk about how things are going. Now, we cannot overlook the fact that mom is momming and she's businessing at the same time. So what is that like now being a mom?
Yes. So 2 times now. I have a 2-year-old and he is 5 months. And this is literally like, I quit my job twice in the midst of entrepreneurship. And like you said, just like learning to juggle it both has been both like challenging and rewarding at the same time. So I'm building something to leave to my children.
Yeah. Speaking of which, on the episode episode 85 of the Work and Play podcast, we were talking about like, right? Let me get those 3 dishes.
Right.
The 3 dishes. And you're the perfect one to coach me because you're the social media strategist. Literally.
Yes.
So those of you guys who are tuning in, I'm sorry. I just went straight into the conversation. Naya, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes. So I am Naya B, and I am the owner of Naya B Marketing. It is a media company. And what we do is help creative entrepreneurs and thought leaders build their brands online through podcast production and social media management.
And how long did it take for you to narrow down that niche? Everybody wants to know.
Years. I'm coming up on 4 years in business officially in July. And it took a long time. I would say even within the last 6 months, I was like, is this really like the direction I want to go in? But I'm so glad that like there's just been so many affirmations that this is just where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. So I think we did our episode like right before you went into labor. Am I right?
Yes. I was supposed to have him in December, but I ended up having him in January, early January.
See, he's kind of like me where I'm like, listen, I'm gonna come out when I'm ready to come out. Right.
Right.
And it's similar with my entrepreneurial journey because like my mom was like, listen, you just weren't coming out. We knocked on the door and you said, I'm not ready. And I think for a long time,
Yes.
it took a while for me to identify as an entrepreneur. For you, why don't you tell the folks like, when did you start identifying as an entrepreneur?
I would say when I officially started my LLC in July of 2018, I was like, I'm doing this. But I'm realizing even more now that I'm more solidified in my entrepreneurship, with like building a team now and like just looking at business differently. Like I wanted to do everything on my own. It's like, no, you're running a legit business. Like this is something you have to do. So I would say I'm more comfortable saying I'm an entrepreneur now than I did before.
But the crazy thing is you've been doing this for like since college.
Yes.
And that's the thing. I think I wanted to tap into that most in the transition because on the podcast, we talked about like those like limiting beliefs that come around charging our worth, taking free clients in the beginning, right? And then finally like charging. So you started identifying as an entrepreneur in 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about the journey of you developing self-confidence in yourself as a business owner?
Man, that journey is, I think, a continuous one, right? Like, it's one of those things where I didn't realize how much self-reflection is needed in entrepreneurship. Like, not only to identify like what you want to do, but just how you want to run your business.
Yes.
And so that journey has been, it's not a straight journey. It's all over the place. And if you guys listen to the podcast episode, you can see that my journey was not like a straight road. I tried things, didn't like things, tried again. But I think the bottom line to that story, or to my story, is that I just kept going. And I know that things can change and will always change. And it's just about like maneuvering.
Yes, girl. The book that I always go back to is Who Moved My Cheese?
Girl. Yes. I still have not read that book, and I've been told it is a really good book for years. Sorry. Excuse me.
No worries, y'all. This is what mommy looks like. Mompreneurs in the house.
He started freaking out on me right before our interview. Okay, here we go.
Hey, Ty.
I know. But yeah, I'm sorry. What did you ask me?
I was talking about, well, see, I almost forgot my doggone self. How about it's okay because right about now I'm thinking baby, I'm thinking entrepreneurial journey, I'm thinking confidence, I'm thinking all of the things. And the other part that I'm thinking about is when it comes to entrepreneurs and stuff, like we be having lots of ideas, don't we?
Yes. And all the ideas are great. All of them.
Come on.
All of them are great.
There's a thing right now. So in my community, we are literally, I feel like the motif is that we have to kind of hone in on one thing. But before we talk about like, honing in on one thing, I want people to know that it's really natural for like our minds to kind of go all over the place. And I feel like we should be able to explore that and then choose one thing that you want to actually become an entrepreneur. what was your process? Because y'all, Naya started off, you started off exploring science, and then it
Political
was
science, yes.
politics or political science.
Mhm.
Then it was communications. Then it became social media, right?
Right.
Oh, doctor. Don't let's not forget
Right.
pre-med.
Right. So and that was really because not that it was something that I was totally sold on, but my dad, you know, immigrants again. I was raised by immigrants, so it's very normal for you to be either doctor, nurse, lawyer, like teacher, like those jobs that people know you're gonna always need someone to work those positions. And so, yeah, as soon as I got to college, I was like, this ain't it.
Right. But you also did DJing. So
No, my
talk a little
husband's
bit
a
about like
DJ.
the different, say that again. Your
My
husband's
husband
a
is a DJ.
DJ.
Yes.
Got you. So talk a little bit about like all of the ideas that you had to sort through before you narrowed down on one.
Yes. So when I went to college, for pre-med. I was trying to become a doctor. But in the back of my mind, I was always interested in marketing and PR. So to kind of appease my parents, I essentially got into political science because I figured that was like another industry that I could get into without freaking out my parents, to be quite honest. And then I minored in public relations. And like throughout that journey, I always enjoyed like marketing and PR, did those type of activities on campus, like with campaigns and stuff like that. But I don't know. I was scared to make that transition. And so after undergrad, I went to grad school and got my master's in marketing. And I was like, all right, I'm still going to do like marketing and PR, but I'm going to still stay in the political arena. Like I'm going to do PR and marketing for in politics. But after I graduated from grad school, Trump was becoming president, or Trump became president, and I was just like, nah. I didn't want to be a part of his administration at all. I didn't want to have anything to do with politics. I just threw that out the window.
Nope. Yeah.
Yes. And my first job out of school was actually at a engineering firm. And I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do, but it was like first job out of school. Just glad I have a job.
Take whatever we can get, don't we?
It's you try to take it, especially because again, my parents. I really wanted to make sure that I got a good job and made them proud. Mm-hmm. And so after like being in an engineering firm, I just realized like how I didn't feel like I could be as creative as I wanted to be. And so that's when I started the podcast, the Cave podcast, with a few friends. And we would interview basically your creatives, your DJs, your artists. And that's when I think that's when the spark kind of came to me, like, wow, this is really cool. This is a really great industry. I really love this. But at the time, like, there was no discussions around like making money from a podcast. Like that, I started the podcast in 2017. Mm-hmm. And so there might have been people making money, but it wasn't like now where everybody knows that you can make money from podcasts.
Right. Yeah. So you locked in.
Yes. I locked into that. And eventually quit the engineering job. I told you on my birthday giving.
Girl, that probably was one of my favorite clips from our episode.
Yes.
Quit on your birthday.
Yes.
So turn in the 2 weeks notice. As they're trying to give you balloons, cake, and cookies. You literally are like, deuces.
Yes. And they were looking at me crazy, and I didn't, I was so afraid. Like, I think especially when you're in corporate, like there's so many nuances to like corporate America, right? And I think I was the youngest person at the firm, in the office. And there was always like these conversations about millennials and how they're like, they don't stick with anything and all this other stuff. So like all these things in the back of my mind, but really realizing like deep down that this just wasn't the place for me. And I didn't have a job lined up at all.
Yeah.
Ended
Can
up
we go there? Can we
Yeah.
go there? Because I think that I think a lot of people, like before I left corporate America, I was literally like YouTubing, how do I leave my job without a plan? How do I quit my job? And there was so much that I was actually trying to figure out how to get out of there. And I just never found, I saw a lot of like testimonials. Oh, this is what my life looked like, gave up my 6-figure job, but I still didn't get any glimpse of like what to do. What were you like? Who were you talking to? Or like, who were some of the people to help you? Did you have anyone to help you through that process?
That, to be honest, just my now husband, then boyfriend.
Yes, we learned a lot about him on the podcast.
Yes, because it was actually that summer we were getting married, and so like I quit 2 months before our wedding, and he was down, like whatever makes me happy. He's just like, do it. I know you can do it. And I was just like, I'm gonna start a business, a marketing business. And I had a plan. I was like, all right, I was doing Uber around the city. So that was how I was making money right after I quit the job.
Y'all, she is really not selling this, because here's the thing. Homegirl was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm either gonna get another marketing job,
yes,
or I'm gonna work for myself, but I'm just not gonna be here.
Yes.
And I thought that was really like killer. But what I'm picking up on that I didn't pick up on in the episode is that, so yesterday I was listening to a clip. It said, life events happen. As an entrepreneur, things are going to always happen, whether it's someone transitioning, you having a baby, like someone gets sick, all of the things, right? But then also listening to you, the day of your birthday, you quit your job. 2 weeks before your wedding, you decided 2 months before you started your wedding, right? You started a business. So before your wedding, you started a business.
Yes.
Right now, right? You're momming and you're able to have a conversation, right? So for me, it seems like your values really do say family first, life first, and then like work and business. How do you prioritize as a woman first, right? Because it sounds like woman comes first and then entrepreneur. How do you prioritize your values?
This for me hits close to home, in that like my business in general, I feel like creatives in general do not have enough balance in their life. Especially in entrepreneurship, like we're constantly online, we're constantly staring at a screen, we're not present for ourselves or for our families or friends. And one of, I would say, my mission in my business is to create balance for my clients, but balance for myself, so that my kids can see me. It's one of those things where there's this narrative that because you're an entrepreneur that you have to work, and no sleep, and basically like drive yourself into a hole.
Yeah.
And you forget the reason why you started the business in the first place. I truly believe that I've had like several reality checks. I enjoy working. It's something I just know about myself. I really do. When I was pregnant with my 2-year-old son, Trey, now 2 years old, I worked until like 2 a.m. Like that was just, I'm gonna do this and
grind it out.
Yes, I'm gonna grind this out. And I just had several reality checks from then until now that the reason why I built this business was so that I could see my children, spend time with them, spend time with my husband, take breaks, go on trips, and I just wish that more of us paid attention to the reason, our purpose of starting our businesses.
Yes, girl. Well, that's why we need people like you on the social media tip, right?
Yes.
So let's switch gears just a little bit because it's like, how do you like some of the practical tips, right?
Mm-hmm.
And feel free because you have a husband, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure he plays a huge role in finding that balance. So what would you say really if people like look at it? It's like
Mm-hmm.
if you really want this type of balance, what are the things that you considered that you had to like count on or lean on in order for you to get the balance in your life? And how does that translate to how you help others, especially as you play a role in other entrepreneurs' lives?
Yes. I think it starts by identifying your goals and like why you're doing what you're doing. It
Mm.
always starts with a why. For me, I was like, all right, I'm in the morning meetup with you,
Shout out.
and you're right, shout out, right? Um, One of the things that David always talks about is like identifying how much money you want to make. Like you sometimes you work, and you're like, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm grinding it out just for whatever reason. And you forget, like, all right, well, how much money do I even want to make? Like, what lifestyle do I really want to have?
Yeah.
And so I started off by saying, okay, this is how much money I want to make this year, for example. And this is what I'm going to do with the money once I get it. So the steps that I'm taking every time I reach a goal, a milestone, I'm like, okay, I celebrate my little wins, and I make sure that I spend the money the way that I
That you
want to
said
spend it.
yes.
Yes. And then of course reinvesting in my business so that it's sustainable. But it really it started with my why. And just really being transparent with my husband. Like when I have like back-to-back meetings, um, he's been super, super supportive, taking both of the kids and just taking them downstairs, like, all right, let mommy grind out for a few hours, get her work done, have her meetings, and then afterwards you can see mommy.
Yeah.
But it really takes, I think, if I didn't have my support system, I really don't think I'd be able to do what I do.
Yeah.
Um,
Before we started the live, I was telling everybody that I really love that part of the podcast where you went into y'all's story, right? And
yes.
honestly and truly, how he shut it down and was like, "What you gonna do? You
Right.
want me or not?" Right? So, but in
Yes.
hindsight, I think you look back as I'm watching the podcast. In hindsight, there's so much clarity into the role that he played in your life.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if you were to go back, right? Um, and give yourself feedback on the type of woman that you are now and how you would grow or the things that you needed to look out for in your husband. What are those things in hindsight that you really either didn't see or that you could have seen that still would have led you to this point, but that you would have just known?
Saying as far as like when it comes to my husband or the
Just
business.
so more about you, right? I
Yeah.
think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of ladies, they want to be, wives and entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
And yes, you met your husband in college,
Mhm.
but there are qualities that were there that maybe now. There were conversations that you guys had,
Yes.
and you guys were friends. So like guidance from a woman's perspective, a woman entrepreneur perspective of like what to pay attention to if this is the life that you want.
Yes. I would say the foundation of me and my husband's relationship is friendship. And I didn't realize how much like that is intertwined in our relationship even to today. Um it's like you have to like the person. You have to like the person. Like even when you don't, like if they get on your nerves or whatever the case may be, not things aren't going to be perfect all the time. And I think being friends first really, really solidified just what we have now. Because he accepts me for who I am. And oftentimes when you don't get to know the person or like build a friendship with them, people fall for you for different reasons, right? And it may be what you do or it may be how you look. And I find that because we started off friends and got to know each other, there's things that he knows about me that I don't even realize about myself. And he can bring back stories like, well, you remember you responded this way, like to this, or, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? And he'll give an example. But I think that's the foundation. Another thing is like, aside from friendship, because a lot of people will say, well, if you get into a relationship and y'all just friends, like, I don't want to just like, it has to be, romantic as well, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's super important too, because that keeps the flame going, right?
Yeah.
So I would definitely say, like, we definitely had those times when we've had our date nights, and just time together to be able to talk about like our future. We did that a lot. Like, these are things that I want in life. These are things that I don't want to really compromise on. This is how I see like a future with my husband. And I feel like not a lot of men are mature enough to have those conversations. But I think they're needed to be really transparent. Like, because how else will you know?
Yeah.
You end up being in a relationship with someone that you don't know. After a while, you're like, okay, well, I didn't know you wanted that. So what are we going to do now? But if you talk about it in the beginning, there's no surprises. It's like, no, I told you that I wanted to live here, or I wanted to have this many children, or,
It sounds like being in a marriage also, you know how in entrepreneurship, like just being in a relationship with your business, you learn a lot. You learn a lot. It sounds like being married also helps you learn a lot about yourself. And so I can't tell you how much I really enjoyed that part of the podcast, honestly and truly. But this is the Work and Play podcast, and so I got to ask you a little bit about work.
Okay.
Because like we are here for while we have your attention with the social media queen, I would love for us to talk a little bit about how your business is evolving and how you're helping other clients kind of level up in their business from a social media strategy perspective.
Yes. So I think one thing is that I offer social media strategy. I think a lot of people, they don't realize that social media management or managers are not the same thing as a social media strategist. And oftentimes social media strategists work with social media managers in order to execute campaigns or just your day-to-day operations online for your business. When you don't have a strategy, like, you're just posting, And so with my clients, I sit down and I basically map out, like, who are your competitors? What are they doing online? How do they show up online? What platforms they're on? What is it that, like, then I break down basically how each platform works. Because a lot of my clients, they're not like super into social media. They know they need to be on social media, but they're like, I'm not trying to learn for real. Like,
That's the thing. A lot of times, like, even we talked about this on the podcast. It's like, we know that there's a need to be on there, but we so do not want to be on there, right? And so when it comes to like taking that, so when we were on the podcast, we were still kind of brainstorming, right? Value proposition. So now that you're much clearer, what's that one problem that you solve, and how did you get there?
I would say balance. A lot of entrepreneurs that I work with, they have so many other things they have to do in their business, right? And social media is not a top priority for them, but they find themselves trying to do that and they feel overwhelmed. And so I help them create balance within their business. And it's necessary. You have to have a team in order to run your business. Otherwise, you just create another job for yourself. Like, essentially. And so that's what I create for my clients. Balance, and I give them their time back so that they can do the things that they love.
She talking good. You were talking good on the podcast when you said that, and I was picking up what you were putting down. So those of y'all who need help from a social media perspective, other podcasters like myself, now is the time for y'all to go ahead and get your pen and paper out, because we need you to get tapped in. So Naya,
Yes.
before we let you go, what are some of the like top 1 or 2 or 3 things that people need to do before they're ready to work with you? And after you get done with that, let us know, how can we connect?
Yes. So you definitely have to understand your why. I think that's the biggest issue that I run into when I'm working with clients, is that, again, they know that they're supposed to be online, but they're not really sure the reason why they need to be. And so, are you on social media because you want to get clients from social media? Are you just looking to have a presence? Some people use their social media just as a business card, and that's okay as well.
Yeah.
You have, are you trying to nurture your current clients, like build a community, so they have information consistently? So understanding your why. The next thing I would say is I would want them to identify where they want to be. So like a lot of times I ask them their goals, month to month, and then for the year, which is always daunting. I mean, including for myself, like what am I going to do next month?
And is that where you want to be from a social media perspective, where you want to be next month, or like in life?
In business, in your business. So if you have a goal to make $100,000, or one of my clients, for example, their goal is to build their email list, so that they can have events in the future. So years from now, next year. And so doing that, we're like, okay, well, the content that we're creating has to be pretty good, right? It has to be engaging enough for people to want to say, yes, I want to get more content from you to my email.
Yeah.
You know? So paying attention to that, because I think most entrepreneurs that I run into, including myself, I've gone through this, where it's like, you just have to be more intentional about what you're doing on the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So those are my top 2.
I thank
Understanding your why and knowing where you want to go.
I love it. I love it. And for that, then you guys will be able to have like a strategy call and be able to understand like how long you're going to be able to support them, whether it's going to be 5, 12 months, and then what platforms they're going to be on and how that all goes together.
Yeah. So some of my clients decide, hey, they want to do podcast production to promote their business. Their goal is awareness. And so I help them basically from start to finish, if they're wanting to launch their podcast, all the way to the production of it. And then on the social media side, creating promo clips for them, creating content in general, making sure that they're scheduling their content on a regular basis. So that's like a full package. The strategy side of it is I have a VIP weekend, and I spend time with them basically mapping out all their goals, their competitors, as well as the times that they should be posting and the types of content that they need to post.
Let's go. Let's go. So those who are listening, I was definitely on a podcast like, this sounds like something I need. So if you feel like that's you too, and you're like, okay, so let me get tapped in with Naya. Naya, how can folks reach out to you? How can they connect with you and get your services or continue following your journey?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Naya B Marketing. You guys can send me a DM. If you are interested in any of the services that I mentioned today, you can click the link in my bio and set up a consultation. You can also check out my website at nayabmarketing.com.
I love it. Now, before we get out of here, was it intentional to be like, our Naya be pimping? It's like, not pimping, because that's what comes to mind. Like Ari be pimping. I was like, that actually goes well. Naya be marketed.
Yes.
Did you think of that?
My husband actually came up with the name.
Naya be marketing. That's what she be doing. She be marketing.
My middle name is B, so
I know. It just flows. So listen, Naya, thank you so much for joining. And did I say that right, Kai?
Yes, Kai.
Thank you for joining, Kai. We got to see you cooking before you were out here, and now we
Yes.
get to see you at the end. So have a wonderful day. Kai is ready to get some food. He ready to go to bed. He wants some
Ready
nap
to go to
time.
sleep. Yes.
Until next time, bye y'all. Don't you go nowhere, Naya. Bye y'all.
Bye.
Peace.